can help. Yeah. Including free ones, I will. Good evening. I'd like to call this the regular town council meeting of December 10th, 2024 to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Allenson.
Here.
Carmody.
Here.
Fishbein.
Here.
Laffin.
Here.
Regan.
Here.
Reynolds.
Here.
Tata.
Here.
Testa.
Here.
Marone.
And Councilor Marone did have a family obligation this evening. May I get a motion on the consent agenda?
Madam Chair, I move items 3A through 3J.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Item number 4, there were no items removed from the consent agenda. Item number 5, public question and answer period. Any members of the public have any questions or comments, you can come to the mic. Seeing none, we will move on to item 6, which is discussion of old business. Attorney Farrell, do you have an update on Hidden Brook Lane?
Attorney Small has told me that the developer and his attorney have not responded to her inquiries into the status of obtaining the easements. Engineering believes, with the exception of resolving the easements, the A2 is satisfactory. Attorney Small has advised the developer of that decision to maintain, of his obligation to maintain the road throughout the winter, and Attorney Small will be meeting with the staff to discuss the next step.
Thank you. Item 7 is discussion and possible action regarding the new clinician job description. We have some representatives here. Once you're settled in, if you wouldn't mind just identifying yourselves for the record, please. You gotta turn on your mic.
Jim Hutt, Town HR Director.
Mandy Miranda, Director at Youth and Social Services.
Thank you. Would you like to give a little description of this position in the description first, and then we'll take questions from the council?
Okay, sure. Past couple of years, we've been looking at the rise of people calling, whether it's families with children, adults, individuals looking for counseling services. We struggle with wait lists at other agencies. We have some counselors we're able to reach out to, but again, there's long wait lists. And it's really in all how you hit the timing of things. I can give one example. There's an intensive in-home service that we've utilized in the past where if you hit it just right, the family, when they call, might be able to get some services relatively quickly. Majority of the time, there could be a 3 to 6 month wait. So it's a struggle for families. What we do currently in the office, it's immediate, it's quick. We do a lot of like kind of check-in situations while the families are waiting to get in to see somebody at different agencies, depending on what the services are. So it's, it's hit or miss. I had a perfect example. It was a couple of weeks ago. I had a mom come in with her 23, 24-year-old daughter looking for mental health services. And there was a struggle in finding. They were having a struggle. Insurance was an issue. There's high copays. I was able to give a few names. In that situation, that was a situation where the family was able to hook up with services in Meriden. And the mom called me and said that it worked out well, which was fantastic. But if we had somebody in-house, a full-time counseling position, it would have been a very easy, like they would have had something scheduled that day. to be able to meet with somebody. So that's what we were looking to do.
Mr. Hudge, do you have anything, or do you want to just go straight to questions?
No, I just reiterate what Mandy said.
Thank you. Counselor Fishbein?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, who drafted this job description?
So that was my office. It was shared with Mandy. We reviewed it, and so that's how this came about.
You said shared with me, so your office drafted it and then shared it with Mandy, or vice versa?
But it was a collaborative project.
Okay. So, you know, we had another job description tonight on our agenda. It was on consent, and I was comparing the two. And there's a word that jumps out at me in the language that you folks chose to work on together. Understand, let me just ask this. Is somebody else already considered for this position?
No, not at all.
Okay. So in the knowledge, skills, and abilities section, you don't ask somebody to have the ability to provide counseling. You ask them to have considerable ability. Why did we choose the modifier?
You talking about considerable?
Yes.
Yeah, so for a position that requires a knowledge, skill, or ability that is beyond the working level, that's why we would specify a considerable. This person is going to be the subject matter expert to provide this service. They wouldn't have anybody within the organization to refer to for assistance with that.
I'm just trying to, how are we to ascertain where the line is on considerable? We're not asking them just to have the ability, because we'll go on, the next sentence talks about ability to relate and establish rapport with youth, parents, and adults. But you chose to add the word considerable to that. So, say, you know, somebody who has a license in this area, who has 5 children that are doing well, obviously, I think to me, has the ability to communicate with kids and they have the licensure, right? But from this, you're asking for more than that. You're asking for considerable ability in that area. And I'm just trying to figure out, you know, I see this more and more with government job descriptions where certain words are thrown in there so that it gives the government or whomever the opportunity to say, well, yep, you have the ability, you are qualified, but you don't have that considerable ability. And I'm just trying to figure out why somebody chose, because we'll go on. The next sentence talks about the ability to establish and maintain effective working relations with the coworker, vendors, and the public. Once again, added the word considerable ability. So is there a reason, or can we just strike that word from this? Because I'm comparing it to, you know, we approved already on the consent agenda a job description for a water quality field technician. The word considerable doesn't appear anywhere in that job description, but somebody here chose to add the modifier, and I'm just trying to figure out why.
So I can explain that water quality technician, if you read the general duties, it says it's an entry-level position. So this is a practitioner who's coming in fully licensed to perform mental health services. And when we review the qualifications, and I'll defer to the department head to evaluate the considerable portion during the probationary period, but we're not going to look at that when we qualify them. We're going to look at the minimum qualifications. Do they have what's specified under minimum qualifications? So the job description is, we list the examples of duties, the major ones that are performed. What are the knowledge, skills, and abilities, and to what level are those knowledge, skills, and abilities needed to perform those duties? And then from there, we develop the minimum requirements. So what minimum requirements would necessarily give you this on for the position? So they all kind of blend together, but the the ability to perform those knowledge, skills, and abilities, I'll defer to the department head during the probationary period to evaluate those.
Understood. I'm just trying to figure out, I mean, essentially, you can't even hire the person without somehow ascertaining that they have considerable ability. Because, the next one is, and it's a record-keeping thing. Ability to keep and maintain accurate and detailed records. But that isn't what you're asking for. You're asking for the considerable ability. Once again, it could be used as a bar, but then compare that to the last sentence, which I think is very important here, in which you did not choose to use the word considerable. You just said the ability to work flexible hours, including nights and weekends. I would think that that's one of the most important things there, but you chose not to have
So
the
if you-
considerable there.
Yeah, so if you look at these knowledge, skills, and abilities, one of the factors that you look at is to what level do they need to do this to be successful? You're either able to work flexible hours or you're not. I don't think you could substantiate that with considerable or any type of adjective like that. So that's the reason why it says ability to work flexible hours, including nights and weekends. Either do or you don't.
And I would just push back and say you either have the ability to keep and maintain accurate, detailed records or you don't. Same thing, right?
I think the position requires you to have that ability.
Where would this individual be working out of?
Youth and Social Services.
Okay, so there would be an office that's dedicated there. So why do we require them to have a driver's license?
If they
They
have,
get a ride to work, why isn't that sufficient?
because sometimes they might attend a school meeting, or other meetings that might be held in town. We all do that right now currently in the office, and that could be something that if you have a youth client that has, the perfect example is a school meeting, where it could be an IEP, could be a 504 meeting, and the family is asked for their counselor to attend. It happens.
Okay. The insurance issue, because that came up in your initial, how is it anticipated that this position would deal with insurance or perhaps payment to the town for services?
So that's something that I have been exploring, because we're not set up currently for that. That's something I could see in the future. But again, I haven't done that, so looking at how that would look. So to have somebody with have a license now would make it that much easier in the future to be able to do that.
So right now, it's anticipated that these services would be offered for free.
At the moment, as they are, all of our other services are.
I didn't hear that.
All of our other services are as well. So, so it would just be, but that is something that we're working on, and I'm talking to other agencies, in the state that are similar to ours, and how do they do that, so trying to figure out getting more information, and then figuring out how to implement something like that.
All right, so what about the duplication of services issue? We've been hearing that the coalition has been filling a role here that I see, this position, there's prevention of substance misuse. It's directly in the mission of the coalition. There's other aspects here that I know that they have touched on. So how do we heard 6 months ago that they had chosen not to hire therapists and to put up billboards instead, which I vehemently object to, but that was their decision. How do I deal with that?
Youth and Social Services provides those types of services in regards to counseling. Coalition has always been a prevention program and have never, since it's been erected, has never been an agency that has done that. They've referred They'll refer clients. We receive actually referrals from the coalition for the counseling.
Okay, but so you're saying, and I'm reading from the document, the prevention of substance misuse is not something that the coalition gets involved in.
Their coalition does as a prevention program. When we're seeing clients, they're coming in with a lot of different things. It's not rarely one issue, one thing that comes in. It could be, there's family dynamics, it could be individual, it could be, youth, but there's always more than one thing. And that could be something that needs to be addressed with the counselor that they're working with. And they have the relationship that they built with the counselor that works out of youth and social services. So that's something, so in this job description, this position, somebody would need to be familiar with substance use and being able to address those needs. It doesn't mean it's their primary function at all, but it needs to be, they need to have some knowledge base around it so that if it does come up in a session, or they're creating a plan, a behavior plan, that they can address those issues that come up.
The chronic absenteeism that's addressed in this job description, what are we currently doing in that area? We're talking about kids not going to school, right?
And it could be something more in depth. So we have
Absolutely.
minimal, right? So we have a lot of minimal, we have, the program we have now is minimal in nature. It could be something where we're touching base with the youth. It's not something that needs a license for. It's providing education, services that are out there, might be referrals. Other programming in our office. It could be, setting them up with our social service caseworker, because there's more family, stressors that are going on. There's a lot of different things that could be coming up. So, in working with the school, working with the guidance staff. But for situations that I'm looking for someone that can work with adults, that can work with youth, can work with families. That's a huge mixed bag. So somebody's got to be able to come in and, when you can get a client in the morning that's, youth and school, has school issues, maybe not showing up at school, but then you're seeing, someone in their 40s and they're struggling in the afternoon. So they need to be able to be, diverse in that way. So chronic absentees, that's just another symptom of what the bigger problem is.
I got it.
Yeah.
I've sent people to you,
Oh, absolutely.
deal with
Yeah.
families all the time that have issues.
Yeah. It's never just one thing.
I got it. The one thing I didn't see here was, we have this diversionary system for the youth that the juvenile court won't deal with, and throw them back in the community to have the community adjudicate something. I didn't see any reference in here to working along with that program or being part of that program.
That person would be, and again, in the vein of there's so many things that are going on, right? So you're looking at the situation as a whole, and being involved in the juvenile court system is another symptom, right? So that would be something that would, depending upon what's going on within the program, what's decided in the way of consequences, it could be something where we're assigning, like, you're going to go see this person for so many sessions, or they're struggling finding counseling. We've heard that quite a bit, again, especially in the diversion program, struggling to find a counselor, and then being able to see them on a regular basis. And so that could be something that this position could actually help out with that program.
No,
Absolutely.
I agree, but
Yeah.
you agree that it's not in this job description.
Not specifically, because I'm looking at it, if I did that, then I would have to go down like each program specifically, and okay, well then this, this youth in this program they'd have to have knowledge on this and that. Some of it, the way we operate currently, the way I look at it and the way we operate is I'm kind of like the gatekeeper. So when referrals come in, I'm finding out what's happening, and then I'm assigning cases to the most appropriate person, because everyone brings something different. And that's what I would do, the same thing with when we get the cases coming in with the panel, and then it's up to the panel to come up with the consequences. And if it's something where a family's, again, could be could be the co-pays of their own insurance, it could be other program, they're struggling to get in somewhere, where we can actually provide counseling from a licensed person, for a period of time, then that would be something I would put in. I wouldn't necessarily put that specifically in here, though.
Okay, and I know you and I talked about, the ability of your office to have services like this. So I do recognize that something needs to be done. Is there a plan to triage those cases, though, that have financial ability as opposed to those that don't?
Yes.
What is that plan?
It's nothing formal right now, but it would be part of my review process when cases are coming in. Is this something that we need to really look at? Is this something that where the family is really struggling? It'd be something where our social service caseworker who does that. I mean, that's a big part of her job is vetting and kind of seeing, which program out of her specific office, utilizing her as well when need be. I mean, so there's ways to do it. It's just kind of, at this point, again, with the insurance piece, I'm learning.
Understood. Are you married to the considerable wording here? Well, I've cross-examined therapists on the stand, and I've had some relatively young therapists that I thought did a great job, but I don't know that I could say that they had considerable experience. And I walked away saying, that they really helped out that family. But I'm really having problems with the use of the word considerable here. Would it be acceptable if we struck it from this? I don't think it would hamper you at all. In fact, it would perhaps open up more people to be able to fill this role.
So I can speak to that. Even if you were to strike considerable, it's not going to amend the minimum qualifications. And
Agreed.
so, but I would argue that to have that level of knowledge, skill, or ability, whatever applicable, is important to be represented in this position because of the importance of the job. I think this is a very, a critical position. It requires them to be fully licensed by the state of Connecticut, which is a testament to their credentials. So I don't think we're looking at them as being anything entry level. It's certainly a practitioner fully licensed in the state of Connecticut, which is a testament to their, their ability to do the job.
Okay, but that's not even in the section that I'm talking about. So it says, in special requirements, must possess and maintain state of Connecticut licensure as a clinical social worker, marital and family therapist, or a professional counselor, right? So I'm not looking to touch that. So we're obviously looking for somebody who is licensed to be in this area. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about 2 paragraphs above that where you're utilizing this word considerable, and I don't find it to be necessary, and I see it as a bar to applicants. It's undefined. One who reads this may want to apply but doesn't know what the hell considerable is, and I just don't think it's appropriate. So, but I'll defer. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Counselor Regan.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I would like to make a motion to approve the clinician job description as it has been presented before us.
Second.
All right, motion and second. Any further discussion from you, Counselor Regan, or is that all?
No.
Okay. Counselor Laughlin.
I think considerable should stay in there because, so I work with therapists, and when you are planning to go see a therapist, you're kind of matched, and there's an intake process. And in this situation, there is no time to think about, ask questions, or know what's going on. You're calling in somebody that may not have a long-term professional relationship with them. Maybe they're going to check in, but you need somebody that has seen and run the gambit and knows how to jump in, pick up in the middle of anywhere. It could be a little battle, it could be a major war, and take off and hit the ground running. So I think considerable is very appropriate. And I know from business, if anybody, I know a lot of people that apply for jobs with adjectives like that when they have no business applying for it. We have people that apply to be therapists or counselors or nurses, whatever it is, that have no experience whatsoever. So a word like considerable shouldn't scare away anybody that actually has some sort of decent experience. And if they aren't sure they have considerable experience, then they probably shouldn't be applying in the first place. I think it's great the way it is. I think this is a great position. I think any duplicitous services get covered, whatever. If we can help one person, are we going to not do it? Like one person in the next couple of years, the entire time that this one person may serve in this role. What if we save one person's life? That's enough. So why wouldn't we do it? And they should have considerable experience. Thanks.
Thank you, Counselor Reynolds.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just had a couple of questions around the pay. $32 to $38 an hour is obviously not a small amount of money. But do you think you will be able to reasonably attract a person for this role with this salary? Only because, you do mention dealing with substance issues, dealing with children, dealing with adults, dealing with families, dealing with all of these things are separate things that you can actually be certified in. So you're kind of looking for a jack of all trades, to Counselor Laffin's point, somebody who can kind of do everything, and having some exposure to mental health practices. Typically, clinicians have other clinicians in the office that can actually talk to, bounce ideas off of, consider, and so forth. This person's going to be completely on their own, correct, in this role?
So, yeah, we have, as a licensed person, yeah. However, I do know from other agencies that when situations like this do arise, they find each other, and they have their own little group that they can be able to bounce, things off of as well. But from what I'm understanding, you can speak to that.
Yeah, so when we were looking at the salary, we did benchmark this with another municipality. And then what I did send this job description to a large nonprofit mental health organization and had their HR director review it and provide me some feedback regarding the pay. And they said that this pay would be appropriate for what we're looking for.
Okay, and thank you for that. I just wanted to verify. And so you're talking about a full-time position. This isn't per diem, right? This is a person that will be there, not necessarily 8 to 4, 9 to 5, because it does say you're working nights, you're working weekends. And obviously with benefits as well. So this is an hourly pay plus benefits. Okay. I guess, yeah, I think I'm good. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Allenson.
Thank you. So my just my opinion on I guess my weigh in on the considerable argument is, regardless of whether considerable is in the job description or not, it's going to be the basis by which we hire. So a minimally qualified candidate might as well know that if they are not considerably experienced, they will not be hired. So I just think that it's better to walk into something knowing that maybe you don't have considerable experience, and if you're just shooting your shot, fine, but you know that there's a chance you're not going to get hired. If we open it up to newer folks in the field, or just those who have less experience, it's not to say that their experience is lesser by qualification, it's just lesser by quantity. I mean, you see a lot more things in 5 years than you do in 2 years. I mean, I work not even close to that. I work in IT, like fixing little tiny computer issues, and I can tell you every year I find out that I don't know like 700 more things. So I think considerable experience is actually appropriate if that's what we're looking for. I also think it's fair. I think that it's fairly salaried. I think, of course, it's fairly benefited because, you know, it's full-time employee. I imagine it's all of the benefits of full-time, you know, the pension, yeah, all of that. So I would say, you know, I'm definitely all for this. I would give you 2 if I could, you know, but I do think this is a great place to start. So thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Testa. Okay. Yes, Councilor Fishbein.
I think this is the first time that we're delving into something like this. Maybe I'm wrong, but this would be an individual who would have to comply with HIPAA, correct?
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
And do we have that in place, the protections? Okay, so
Yeah, oh, yeah. I mean, we have our releases, we have our secure, you know, where our documentation. Oh, yeah, we handle all that.
Okay, because well, I'll leave it at that. Okay, thank you.
Anything else from the council? Any members of the public care to comment? Okay, seeing none, Madam Clerk, if you would please call the roll.
Allenson,
Yes.
Carmody,
Yes.
Fishbein,
No,
Lappin,
Yes.
Regan,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Tata,
Yes,
Testa.
Yes.
and the motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 8 is discussion and possible action regarding an update on the ARPA funds. And I just wanted to note, item number 9 has been withdrawn this evening. So we're just going to move on to item number 8. This was Mr. Sena's item.
Good evening, everyone. So we have reached the end of a very long road with ARPA, and the first deadline is upon us. And at this deadline, we need to have the money committed by 12/31 this year, or it will be lost. So just to give a quick summary of where we're at. We received 13.1, I'm gonna use round numbers, 13.1 million. We've appropriated 12.3 million so far for businesses, nonprofits, and municipal projects. So we have approximately 800,000 unappropriated. But in the last month or so, I've been working with the department heads to rein in on, or do you need all that money? Do you need all that money? So I'm projecting another 170,000 is going to go into that unappropriated number. So right now, I'm projecting there's around $975,000 that is not committed, with no plans for the town to use it at this point. So what we are looking to do to not lose the money is to use the revenue replacement provisions for ARPA. And we're looking for a motion that will let me, you guys will designate the comptroller to decide which expenditures in the current budget can be used for this money, which will then satisfy the requirements of ARPA that the money was spent by 12/31. But what this does is it frees up money in the current year budget that you can later on down the road appropriate to whatever project you would like. And it kind of extends the life of it, because now we don't have to have the money spent in the next 2 years. You have, once you decide what you want to do with that extra money, it's your money. It no longer has the ARPA tag to it. So that's what we're asking for today.
Thank you, and I do have two specific motions given to us by the comptroller. I think it might be prudent just to open up to discussion before I make those motions. So if anybody has questions just about what we're doing, we'll have the discussion first. Councilor Laffin.
I was just going to go with the motions, but I'll defer.
Thank you. Councilor Fishbein?
So, Mr. Senator, can we just go over the math again? I mean, I was following you until you got to so we got 13.1 from the feds. We spent 12.3, leaving us with about 800,000.
Correct.
Right?
That's correct.
But then you said, I think that you earmarked about 170,000.
So I can go over that with you. So we did pretty well with.
We can do the helicopter right at this moment, because if you earmarked 170,000 from 800,000, that would be a minus, not a plus.
No. I'm sorry, I think you misunderstood.
Sure.
Of the amount that, and I probably didn't explain it clear enough. I'm not saying you misunderstood it. So, but of the amount that's appropriated, I'm projecting that we're not going to spend that. So we're adding it back into the total because it's not going to get spent.
Oh, okay. Of the 12.3, there's 170.
Yes.
Got it.
Yes.
Okay.
So I apologize for the confusion.
That's fine. So let's just say that we didn't have this money. I'm just trying to figure out, you're saying that we're going to take the current budget, apply to expenditures, capital as well as ongoing, like, operations.
So I can do capital, ongoing operations. I just can't do the specific ones that were noted that you can't use ARPA for, which is pension, health insurance, and all that. So the one, what I was looking at was just pretty quick and easy one, was we've already paid the property insurance for the town and Board of Ed for the year, which is more than that amount. So we could, create a project that's what we use the money for this year. That's what I have to report to the federal government on our quarterly report. And then that frees up the money in the general fund for you to appropriate it for something else.
So procedurally, that is in effect a budget surplus.
Correct.
Okay. And ordinarily, a budget surplus reverts to the general fund, but here we would create some sort of a catch-all account that these surplus funds would go into and sit there until appropriated by the council. Is that what we're talking about?
Correct. We wouldn't be able to do anything without council approval, so it gives you some time. So if you decided, if the pool project goes full bore and you guys decide that that's what you want to take this money and put it to the pool fund, then we can put it to the pool fund. We would be coming back for you to do it. It's kind of just really an accounting thing. When we would come to do that appropriation, since we're putting the ARPA money into the general fund, we would increase the revenue budget by whatever this final amount is, and then you would appropriate the expenditures wherever you want it in the same amount.
Okay, but also we have the hurdle that we've dealt with the prior administration, in that we can't do anything with that money. was the position that was taken, without the administration making a recommendation and us approving it, right? That's the current status of the feeling in this room, right? No matter, that money goes, this money goes into that catch-all account. It sits there. We can't make a motion to create a project without the administration coming to us, right? That would be the plan.
You can certainly ask the administration.
Yeah, but you're the gatekeeper, Mr. Mayor.
That's how we read the charter.
Got it. So if we don't do that,
So if
what happens?
if we don't do it, we're proposing to do tonight, then that money is gonna get sent back to the federal government. Because it's uncommitted by the deadline.
Okay. All right, I think that answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you. And just, I just wanted to clarify too, that item number 9, the purpose of that, when I spoke with the comptroller and the mayor earlier this week, we were thinking that we should put the money to a specific project. And so we said community pool park, whether we get the pool or not, it would go towards the park, just to kind of let the money sit there. That was why we had that specific item. But now it sounds like we can just let the money sit there. And as long as we put it towards something, it's almost just a placeholder. So the council can still decide, I assume, with the mayor's willingness to spend it. But it did sound to me like the mayor was pretty amenable to the council's ideas, was how our conversation went. Yes, Councilor Fishman.
So, but in effect, we lift the federal shackles by doing it this way.
By doing it this way, yes.
So what we could use the money for, we're off the list because we're gonna use the money for things that are on the list, so the surplus is totally within our administrative bounds between the administration and this body.
Correct.
We could use it for I'm not suggesting we use it for pension, but we could use it for pension.
Correct.
Okay.
Basically, we're saying we used, by my example, we're saying we used it for the property insurance for the town properties. We've fulfilled our requirements. But since now we have a surplus in the general fund budget, now you can appropriate it for anything you want with none of those strings attached to it. No deadlines, so you can use it for anything you want. Or you could not use it and it's just gonna go into fund balance.
Thank you.
Councilor Testa.
It's possible that this money could be earmarked in an upcoming budget for general operating expenses of the government. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. I hope that wouldn't happen. I appreciate the effort you put into this to prolong, bad choice of words, to extend the time period where we can consider the use of this money. So this will allow us to potentially, as a council, identify things we'd like to do, present it to the administration, and potentially do what we've talked about for 4 years. So that I'm happy about that. So I just hope it, for example, I mean, I didn't pull the fire department item off the consent agenda, but as I was looking at that item, I couldn't help but feel that the money was allocated for a ladder truck, but we didn't use it all. One would expect it would go back into the ARPA pool. But no, it belonged then to the fire department to do what they want with it, to pay for other things. Now, that may have all been stuff we would have approved, but it became administrative, operational money. That bothered me a little bit. And so I'm hopeful, I'll leave it at that. I'm hopeful that this money still remains identified as funds that the council will have the prerogative to participate in its use. How's that? And we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, did you have a, okay. Yeah, and I would encourage anyone, obviously, the budget's upcoming, so, any ideas for its use, I would encourage, to talk to the council or talk to the mayor, and we can certainly see how we want to use that. I'm going to make the first motion. There are two motions. I'm just gonna make the first motion and we can have more discussion, but just so we have a motion on the floor. I make a motion to authorize the comptroller to use the balance of unobligated ARPA funds as of December 31st, 2024 for expenditures in the 2024-2025 budget by December 31st, 2024.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any more discussion on that motion? Okay, any members of the public care to comment on that motion? Okay, seeing none, Madam Clerk, if you would please call the roll.
Allison?
Yes.
Carmody? Yes.
Fishbein?
Yes.
Laffin?
Yes.
Regan?
Yes.
Reynolds?
Yes.
Tata?
Yes,
Testa?
Yes.
and the motion passes. And the next motion, I move to require the comptroller to report to the council in January 2025 the amount of ARPA funds spent in the 2024-2025 budget.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on this motion?
Just,
Does that, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
can we do that? Like, he can come back,
Counselor
but
Lund.
it doesn't need to be a motion, right? Like, you'll just come back, right? Yeah.
I don't have my mic on. But yeah, we'll put it on the agenda as I'll give you a report on everything that was spent, how the program went and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, never mind. I thought they were talking next year.
I don't really, I was gonna say the same thing. I'm like, this seems kind of harsh.
Well,
So,
the motion came from the comptroller himself, so I think he was.
It came from the law department.
All right, so.
But I mean, we were just trying to be, the fact that we're not giving you a specific number, we wanted to assure you that we're gonna come back and tell you what the official number was.
Okay.
I mean, that's kind of what we were getting at there. I don't think you're required to do that motion, but that's just me.
Counselor Fishbein?
Yeah, I appreciate the openness and transparency. I would like to know about, I know at some point the law department's supposed to get involved with auditing, making sure that the money was actually spent or on certain things, what money's left over. Is that gonna be part of the January thing too, or are we too early for that?
So I can give you the financial piece of it, of what was spent. And so the one thing at this deadline is we can still have encumbrances out there, so the cash isn't out the door yet. So, but we'll have everything committed by the deadline. So I'll give you a report saying, I'll do a presentation or report or something saying, hey, we gave 56 businesses X amount of dollars, nonprofits X amount of dollars. This is the amounts that were returned and that kind of stuff.
Okay, and because there may possibly be additional money that would be available to us through that procedure also.
So I think we by what we've done here, I'm going to be working with the department heads till the last minute. Basically, we're going to be sending out, pretty stern memos that if you don't have an encumbrance in by this date, you've lost the money. It's going into this pot. So, but what you're talking about with, like auditing the nonprofits, I think, I don't want to speak for Janice. So, I mean, maybe if we can talk offline, and if you want that, we can do that.
Yeah, I'm just wondering about the timeline, because it's not only the nonprofits, I think she's supposed to audit the for-profits too, so. But anyway, well, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Counselor Allison?
just for information from my conversations and from Attorney Small's presentations to us in a lot of the meetings, she has been continually auditing the businesses and nonprofits. I also know from speaking to a few nonprofits in town that they had to, like, there were ongoing conversations throughout this whole process, and they had a further forward date. I believe their date was October 31st, by which they needed to be fully encumbered. So I do believe that there's probably work to be done, but I'm sure that she's following up diligently on that.
So what I can say is we gave the nonprofits, the business, an earlier deadline so that if they didn't spend the money, we had the opportunity to take it. And just in the number I gave you earlier, we're projecting $62,000 of nonprofits of where they didn't spend the money that's coming back. That was part of the 175. The businesses, it's about 45,000 where they didn't comply. So they had to do a lot of stuff to prove to us before we even gave them the money. So, I mean, it was basically audited all along. So, and then one of the other big numbers is for the consultant, we didn't use the consultant as much as we had budgeted. So, you know, I'm about 44,000 of that's going back into the pot too.
Thank you.
Okay, so without a second on that motion, I guess we'll just take you at your word, Mr. Senate, that you're gonna give us that report. And so I will withdraw that motion. Is there any comment from the public? Anything else from the council before we close this item? Okay. There being no further business, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Have a good evening.